Welcome to a journey filled with mystery and terrifying tales. Today, we'll dive into spine-chilling real-life experiences, inexplicable moments where the boundary between reality and illusion blurs. These stories aren't just rumors or legends. They are unforgettable memories of those who have faced true fear. From intruders entering homes on Christmas Eve to spirits that never leave this realm. Each story is a reminder that things aren't always as simple as they seem. Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear may make you question what you once believed. Story 1. The Christmas Ghost in Pennsylvania. In the 1990s, the Miller family, David, Sarah, and their young daughter Lily, moved into an old house in a small town in Pennsylvania. The house, dating back to the 19th century, had Gothic architecture with high-pointed roofs and large windows. Local residents claimed the house had seen strange incidents and was rumored to be haunted. But the Millers, who didn't believe in ghosts, were simply thrilled to finally have a suitable home. On their first Christmas Eve in the house, the Millers prepared for the festivities, a decorated Christmas tree in the living room, gifts stacked beneath it, and the house filled with a cozy atmosphere. Lily went to bed early, eager for presents from Santa Claus. David and Sarah stayed in the living room, sipping coffee and discussing future plans. At 11 o'clock, Sarah suddenly heard a soft, childlike giggle coming from upstairs, as if a child were laughing. Thinking Lily was awake, she went to check, but when she opened the door, she found Lily sound asleep. Whispering to David, Sarah asked, "Did you hear anything?" David shook his head, attributing it to the sounds of the old house. Yet, unease crept into Sarah. She couldn't shake the feeling that something strange was hidden within the house. When they returned to the living room, light footsteps echoed from upstairs as if someone were walking along the hallway. This time, David no longer brushed it off as random noise. He whispered to Sarah, "Maybe we should check it again." They cautiously climbed the stairs, their flashlight casting a dim glow. The hallway was pitch dark, with only their shadows cast on the walls. Near the end of the hallway, they saw a faint figure standing still, seemingly watching them. Sarah held her breath and clutched David's hand, whispering, "Is there someone there?" David pointed the flashlight directly at the shadow, but there was nothing. Though terrified, they kept calm and returned to the living room. That night, the strange sounds persisted, making it hard for them to sleep. The next morning, when Sarah entered the living room, she found the Christmas tree toppled over, lights flickering, and presents unwrapped. The living room window was wide open, letting a chilling draft sweep through. There was no sign of forced entry. David whispered, worried, "Sarah, I think something's very unusual about this house. Should we ask the locals about it?" But Sarah, wanting to protect Lily from any fear, decided to keep it to herself. A week after Christmas, Sarah started researching the house's history. She discovered that, at the end of the 19th century, another family had lived there. Their only son had disappeared on Christmas Eve and was never found. His mother spent the rest of her life searching for him, believing his spirit still lingered in the house. On the night before they decided to move out, David and Sarah heard a soft whisper. Mommy, I'm so cold." David, trembling with wide eyes, whispered to Sarah, "I think it's the missing child. He might still be searching for his mother." The next day, the Millers left the house and decided never to return. But one Christmas Eve the following year, when Lily happened to see the house in an old magazine, she turned to her mother and said, "Mom, I saw that boy. He looked at me and smiled on Christmas Eve last year." Sarah shuddered, holding her daughter close, hoping that the horrifying memories were just a fleeting dream. Story 2. The Stranger in the Christmas Darkness. Christmas in the forest of Vermont. In 2008, the Thompson family, Rick, Claire, and their two young sons, Jack and Sam, decided to spend Christmas in a cabin deep in the forests of Vermont. It was their first time trying a Christmas in such a secluded spot, with no neighbors nearby and the town several miles away. The fresh, silent air and snow-covered trees and rooftops created a beautiful Christmas scene. For Rick, it was a chance for the family to disconnect from technology and spend time together. On Christmas Eve, as darkness began to fall. Rick and Claire were seated with the children around the cozy fireplace when they suddenly heard a loud knock at the door. In the wilderness, an unexpected visitor at night was highly unusual. Rick carefully went to open the door. Standing before him was a tall man wearing a thick coat, his face covered in snow, and his eyes red and glazed. He smiled eerily and said in a raspy voice, "Hello, I got lost in the woods and couldn't find my way back. Could I stay here for the night?" Though hesitant, Rick couldn't refuse help to someone in distress, especially on Christmas Eve. He invited the man in, introducing himself and his family. However, the stranger didn't give his name, just smiled and looked at each family member with a scrutinizing gaze, making everyone feel uneasy. By 11 o'clock, Claire noticed that the visitor was still sitting silently by the fireplace, his gaze fixed on the family. Feeling uncomfortable, she whispered to Rick, "Doesn't he seem a bit odd? Why is he just sitting there, staring at us?" Rick felt the same, but tried to stay calm. He stood and suggested the man move to the living room so they could prepare a room for him. But the stranger shook his head, smiling coldly. "Oh, I don't need a room. I'm just here to keep watch." The stranger's words made both Rick and Claire shiver. From then on, the atmosphere in the house became tense. The man remained silent, his eyes following their every move. Around midnight, as the family slept, Jack, the older son, was awakened by a strange noise coming from the living room. He crept out to check and saw the man wandering through the house, peering into each room with an eerie look. Jack rushed to his parents in panic. "Dad, he's doing something strange. I'm scared." Rick jumped up and decided to confront the stranger. But when he entered the living room, the man had vanished. The front door was wide open, and footprints led deep into the woods. Rick grabbed a flashlight and went outside to search. But the man was nowhere to be seen. Only cold silence and the vast darkness of the forest remained. The next morning, the Thompsons decided to leave the cabin and never return. When they recounted their story to a local in town, the listener's face turned pale with fear and whispered, "I think you met the lost wanderer. He used to roam the forest every Christmas Eve, looking for a place to stay. They say he died years ago." Since then, the Thompson family has retold this eerie story as a reminder that sometimes, not every wanderer is a lost traveler. They might be a ghost seeking solace in the cold winter night. Story 3. Christmas at the Abandoned House. On Christmas Eve 2015, a group of 4 friends, Ben, Lisa, Mike, and Sarah, decided to add excitement to the festivities. While at a party at Ben's house, Mike, a thrill seeker, proposed, "Do you guys dare to go into that abandoned house outside of town? They say it's haunted, and no one dares to go near it at night." Ben, Lisa, and Sarah hesitated, but curiosity and a desire to prove their bravery led them to accept the challenge. They grabbed flashlights, small knives for protection, and headed to the house that was rumored to be a no-go zone. The house they aimed for stood in a desolate area, far from other houses. It had once been home to the Browning family, a family who mysteriously disappeared one winter night 50 years ago. Since then, the house remained empty, shrouded in tales of ghostly presence. As they approached, they paused. The house loomed eerie in the dark, with broken windows, slanted roof tiles, and moss-covered walls. The wind made the doors creak, adding to the chilling atmosphere. "Scared?" Mike chuckled, seeing Sarah shiver. "Not scared, it just feels wrong," Sarah whispered. After a determined push, they entered. The air inside was thick and freezing, as if all traces of life had been sucked out long ago. Cobwebs and dust covered the walls, and random furniture was left in disarray as if the family had never left. Suddenly, a noise came from upstairs. Lisa clung to Ben's arm, trembling. Did you hear that?" Mike, full of confidence, led them up the old staircase. Every step seemed to awaken something. The flashlight revealed the Browning family portraits lining the wall, and their eyes seemed to follow each move. They entered a bedroom with a dust-covered bed and a cracked mirror. Suddenly, The door slammed shut, and a chilling air filled the room. Before they could react, Sarah screamed as a shadowy figure appeared in the mirror, a woman with empty eyes and a sorrowful face. "You shouldn't be here," a faint voice whispered from the mirror, freezing them with fear. Ben frantically tried to open the door, but it felt locked from the outside, with tears streaming down her face. Lisa whispered, "We have to get out of here." Mike shouted and kicked the door until it burst open. They rushed down, but the house had changed darker, with endless corridors, and the exit nowhere in sight. A faint voice echoed from all sides. "Don't leave. We'll be together forever." They desperately tried to escape, banging on every door, but only finding darkness and empty rooms. Eventually, they saw a sliver of light at the end of a hallway and moved towards it, despite the cold air enveloping them. Near collapse, they finally made it outside. As soon as they stepped out, the house slammed shut, and the wind carried a ghostly laugh. Breathless, they looked back at the house. Under the moonlight, a shadowy figure of the woman waved goodbye from the window. Since that night, they never returned to the abandoned Browning house. In the following days, they each had nightmares about the woman, but no one dared to speak of it. They only knew that on that Christmas Eve, they had encountered something not of this world, and luckily escaped. The Browning house still stands, waiting for the next daring visitor. But after Ben's friend's story, no one dares approach it, especially on Christmas Eve when winter's chill hides lost souls. Story 4. The Ghost in the Christmas Snow. On Christmas Eve 2017, Thomas, a young banker, decided to drive from the city to his parents' house in the countryside for dinner. However, a snowstorm suddenly hit, blinding his view. After hours of struggling through deep snow, he realized he was lost, stranded in a desolate road with no sign of any nearby houses. As midnight neared, a chilling wind cut through his thick coat. He decided to find temporary shelter until the storm passed. Looking around, he noticed a faint light from an old house hidden behind trees. With no other choice, Thomas approached, hoping for help. The house was a two-story building with broken windows and weather-worn walls. Yet, the light inside offered some comfort. He knocked, but there was no answer. Hesitantly, he pushed the door open and stepped in. The house was utterly silent. Apart from the howling wind, there was no sound. Yet the living room had a crackling fireplace and a decorated Christmas tree. "Is anyone here?" Thomas called out, but only silence replied. Despite his worries, he went to the fireplace to warm his frozen hands. Suddenly, he felt a strange presence, as if someone was watching him from afar. A soft voice spoke behind him. "It's cold tonight, isn't it?" Thomas turned to see a middle-aged woman with long black hair, pale face, and sad eyes. She wore an old-fashioned dress, resembling the 1950s. She smiled gently, but sorrow lay deep in her eyes. "Sorry for intruding without permission, but I got lost in the snowstorm and didn't know where else to go." Thomas explained. "It's all right. You may stay here until the storm passes," she replied softly. "My name is Eleanor, and this house always welcomes those who are lost." They sat by the fire, talking to forget the cold outside. Eleanor told him about the house and her family. She said she had spent her entire life there with her husband and daughter. But one Christmas Eve long ago, a fire broke out, claiming her entire family, leaving only Eleanor behind. "Each Christmas, I wait for lost souls to visit, just so I don't feel alone in the long night," Eleanor said, her voice tinged with sorrow. Thomas sensed something was amiss, but was too tired to think clearly and eventually drifted off to sleep by the warm fire. When he awoke, daylight streamed in. The snow had stopped, and light flooded through the window. He looked back at the fireplace, but it was now just cold ashes. The Christmas tree and decorations were gone, and the room was dusty and decrepit as though no one had lived there for years. He stepped outside and noticed a gravestone by the gate with the name Eleanor Wright, 1920 to 1958. Suddenly, Thomas realized that the woman he had met was the spirit of a soul that couldn't move on. Speechless, Thomas left without looking back. but glanced up to see Eleanor's shadow in the window, her sad smile and longing eyes following him. That Christmas Eve changed Thomas forever. He never shared the story with anyone, but each Christmas, he remembered Eleanor and thought of lost souls waiting somewhere for a fleeting moment of warmth by someone's side. These stories you've just heard aren't merely personal experiences, but warnings about the mysterious waiting in the dark. We may be able to explain many things, but not everything. Indeed, some mysteries lie beyond our understanding. Would you dare face the unexplainable? What happens after Christmas Eve, or when you encounter wandering souls? The answers may never come, but the important question is, what would you do if you met them? Thank you for watching. If you'd like to hear more strange stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new adventures. Remember, sometimes the truth isn't always pleasant, and these strange stories, they could happen to you.